So Jacquelyn Sykes, it must have been almost like a sense of deja vu when Miguel Estrella and the news of that shooting came down. Tell me what it was like when you first heard that news.
My heart broke for the family, and for his girlfriend. I relate to her. I know how she's feeling right now. I'm sure she wishes she never made that phone call. And it just sucks to see a repeat of that in this community. I think things like that can be avoided, and there's avenues for it, but the city just doesn't want to put the funds where it needs to be. I feel terrible for the family.
Do you think, and I had a conversation with Chief Wynn, and one of the first questions was, after Daniel Gillis was shot and killed, what had changed since then? And, he listed off a laundry list of things, mostly along the lines of training, a little bit in the area of protocols, but it was limited. Tell me your thoughts about that, because Daniel was your man, and this happened to him, and I think it did cause some community discussion. I think fast forward, it's a little bit of a different atmosphere, but tell me about your thoughts of what has transpired over the last 5 years.
Yeah. So I know they said that they brought more funding so that every officer who is on the clock has a taser and has access to one. He said that they have pepper balls, I think he said. Pepper ball guns, and I know I wrote it down somewhere.
I think a non-lethal shotgun or something along those lines.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
But they don't have them on their person. They only have the tasers. I don't know. I don't see that to fully be true. I don't think even having those, that they utilize them. Especially for Miguel's case. I mean, if they were going back within minutes and they knew that, he was in crisis and having an issue, why wouldn't they, be a little bit more prepared for that? I mean, I would think that they would always go to a call thinking worst case scenario. So you want to be ready for a worst case scenario. They said they got more training. I can tell you my dealings with the police, it doesn't show that they've gotten more training. I feel like they get really aggravated when they have to come to a domestic or a person in crisis. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to hurry up, get off the call, and go sit in a parking lot and do whatever they have to do. Sit there, count up the minutes till the clock ends. I don't know. It's sad. I can't say that their website leads up further committed to excellence, because they're not. I also read that they have 87 sworn in officers, which according to mass law and what I was reading isn't even enough officers for our population in the city. So that's a huge problem. They're overworked, understaffed. That's already setting up a scenario for, where they're, they don't want to go to these dumb calls and deal with people. And, I don't know.
Yeah. The chief did say that the more support they could get for crisis response professionals, which would be social workers, essentially, is what the clinician would be, to my understanding. Your thoughts on that? Again, there's these kind of situations where if you're in a position where you feel as though there's danger and you're going to a call and there is someone with a knife or with certainly, another weapon, but that's kind of a challenge. I look at that, I'm like, well, geez, how do you set that up, and how do you deal with that? That, to me, one of the solutions that in our conversation that the chief brought up would have been to have more of those clinicians. So I wonder, why wasn't that budgeted after Daniel Gillis, or even in the years with the conversation after what's the first name, Floyd, after Floyd in Minnesota, and I can't think of his first name now.
George
after George Floyd
Yeah.
in Minnesota, so that some conversation happened there, but nothing was budgeted for that.
Right. Which in your interview with him, he said that it was very helpful having those people on call, and so him saying that he agrees with it, I don't know why he wouldn't have proposed something to the city to have it budgeted, because I mean, why wouldn't you want to have that rather than put your officers at risk to fatally shoot and kill somebody? Why not have an outside party be able to come in? I mean, I know, like you said, a dangerous situation, what would you do? I would think they would both go there together. I was told by a retired officer that they didn't like when crisis team came in, because then they always were criticizing the police and the way they did things, and they didn't like that. I don't know if that's just his opinion. He was only one person who said that. It makes sense. Nobody likes to be criticized on the job that they're doing. But again, if the chief was all for it, why was there no budget? And then he said, we had one, and then it went to two and back to one, I believe, one on call. And there's two subcontracting, and it's about 40 hours a week split between the two, which is just insane to me. I mean, Miguel's sister spoke, and she said, crises don't happen on 9 to 5. They typically happen after 9 p.m. And just having those statistics, we really need to look at that and do something. Somebody who spoke at City Hall said that she was reading a study out of, I don't know if it was California or something, where they have like a hub where those calls go into, and they are the ones that respond to it, and they've had great results, and it's been like 10, 15 years going. So I don't know why we're not looking more into what other states are doing.
And I think that's important for the community to know, is that this isn't necessarily reinventing the wheel. It would be new for Pittsfield, but there are other communities that have done this, and I believe Amherst is one of those. There are several communities out there where some of this has already taken place, and I think there's plenty of data to show that it actually has been improving things. So I think that's important to recognize that, when you're taking this leap, well, it's not so much a leap when you have pretty solid evidence that it has worked in other communities.
Right. And I think especially after, COVID, when everybody's, locked in the house, and, mental health is a big issue now. And that's a huge problem in our community. There's no services. Everything has a year wait. So again, it's setting everything in motion, and it's not creating a good, a good, I don't know, field, I guess. I don't know. I know that there's funding, and I know that there's a lot more the city could do, and they need to. I do think body cameras are a little bit of a distraction, because that's not the end all. There needs to be more along with it. We do need to have an on-call crisis. 24/7. I was also told that one of the Jones, I think Jones 2 is like closed down. I don't know. I don't know if it's 1 or 2, but I mean, to me, that's just it. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you're referring to a Berkshire Medical Center,
Yes.
which is their wards for mental health treatment, and I believe drug abuse as well. I think, although I'm
I
not
think so.
100% sure. Yeah, that may be
I think it
McGee
does
unit.
both. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
I'll
I mean,
figure
those
that
go
out. But
hand in hand too.
yeah, right. I think McGee unit may be the substance, and then Jones is certainly the mental health. But
Right. I
um,
think you're right.
so on body cameras, it's interesting because it seems like it fits this sort of horseshoe theory where in politics you have people on opposite sides of the political spectrum starting to believe or advocate for the same thing. And interestingly, you kind of have people who maybe, I don't know how you would describe it, maybe less prone to some sort of change or reform on one side, agreeing with people who are the more liberal, progressive people who are also saying no to body cameras, which I find interesting. And of course, the reasoning is completely, I would presume, completely different, although they may use some of those same talking points in it. But your thoughts on body cameras? I mean, you already said that it would only be a piece of a solution, and you know, I would agree with that also. I would hope that people wouldn't just vote in favor of body cameras, get those body cameras going, and then sort of wash their hands of the issue as if they've solved it. Because I think that would not be the case. It wouldn't be solved with just simply body cameras. But you know, what are your general thoughts on body cameras?
I mean, obviously I'm pro body cameras. I don't know why in 2022 they don't have them yet. To me, it's a little bizarre. They have no body cameras, they have no dash cameras, and there's no GPS in their cars. I have a car and there's a GPS in my car. If I don't make my payment, they come and get my car. So why are, you know, our public servants, why don't they have GPS in their car? But no, I'm for body cameras. I think, you know, you get a firsthand view of what the officer says happened. You get to see what exactly happened, and even without their input, you can watch and make your own opinion on it. And I think no matter what, for the officer, for, you know, whatever they're dealing with, that it benefits everyone. Again, I don't think it's the end all solution, and I don't think that the police should be the only ones reviewing it and have total control of it. I think that's where the police advisory board should come in a little bit, where they would have access to stuff and be able to review it. Yeah. And, you know, when I talked to city council, I said, you know, if we had them back in 2010, when the first shooting had happened in Dolan with Mike Berry, where he was shot in the back naked in the woods, that, you know, maybe that officer wouldn't be an officer in 2017. And maybe half of the force wouldn't even be on there. You know, even if they got 2 or 3 of the officers off the force who are abusing their power, that just benefits everybody, especially the younger ones coming in who are being trained, you know, who are seeing that abuse of power. And, you know, it can kind of be an outside, you know, opinion rather than them, you know, telling on their supervisor for doing something, you know, and then everyone shuts them out. It would be someone else looking at it like, okay, you know, you've had excessive force complaints, you know, 5 times. We're looking into it, and then they're held accountable for it. You know, it's sad to say a lot of the officers, they were all bullied in school, and It's just, it's a way to have that power back. And especially in the city, it's everybody we went to school with. They're all officers, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's small town city, small town politics. Um, I know, especially for Danny's case, Danny was, and that's why I always say it's not a race thing. It's a class issue. Danny was a felon, and as soon as they heard his name, they were already prejudging what was going to happen. And, they need to be held accountable, and things need to be looked into.
And I think, I hope things from the atmosphere has changed in the last 5 years, because I think then it was very contentious, because we are going through a period of time where I think there was a great deal of defensiveness when police officers were being accused. And I think over time, I hope that, there is a recognition that it's not all officers, of course, and
Right.
that it's about having accountability and recognizing that, no, we respect police officers, but that accountability helps make sure that individuals who are not following proper protocols or aren't doing the things that they need to do to keep people safe, that those individuals, those officers are held accountable, and that it will usher in changes that will be better for everyone. Because when officers have their own protection to some extent, and I think body cameras actually can be a part of that, then it is better for everyone. It's better for all those good officers out there doing the best that they can and being really good at what they do, because there are a lot of good ones out there.
Right.
I think maybe it is a little different today, that it isn't. I mean, this is always going to be a sensitive issue all around, but at the same time, maybe we're at a better place where we can actually have the conversation, and people don't go to their corners, and stay there.
Right. I mean, I think it's time for people to honestly to even be uncomfortable and have the conversations, and better off having the conversations than dealing with, a bad outcome,
Yeah. It is. And again, the similarities, the girlfriend calls, you were that girlfriend in 2017, in 2022 it was Miguel's. Have you talked to the family at all?
I talked to his brother at the city hall meetings. Sorry. I talked to his brother at the city hall meetings. I did meet his sister at the meeting as well. I haven't met with them outside of there yet. We are planning like a get together to try to go over things. Maybe a new petition to put forward to city hall. Because we definitely all have our own ideas, and it's time for us to just, pull them in as a community and just come together.
Yeah, and there is a police advisory commission that's in place now, and you and I were probably one of the two of the people who were not in favor of the current commission as it is right now, because I think we were both looking for a greater level of oversight from the citizens that had a little bit more power to be able to do independent investigations, and that meant you had to be able to get maybe evidence that wasn't available to the general public. There was talk about subpoena power, but that was not added into this current committee. I do wish this committee the very best in what they're doing right now, and I hope that they are able to help and move this along. But what you're talking about is very real. It was a 10-1 vote in favor of this committee, which doesn't have an independent power in the way that some other communities, such as Cambridge, I believe Springfield also, has done.
Right. Yeah, no, that was really sad to see, them just vote it in, and they just almost threw it together. First there was no contact information when that first started. When you looked it up online, there was no way to reach out to the advisory board. So we had let a couple of the city councilors know, and then Chief Wynn's contact number got put on there. So again, it almost totally defeats the purpose of having an outside source to be able to reach out to when you're having to reach out to the chief of police. So yeah, it was really distastefully put together. And, I hope over time they figure it out, and they work the everything out that needs to be, and, we can have a functioning advisory board. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Another issue for me is they don't make those meetings like readily available for the public. Like, you have to search online to find when those meetings are. Same with City Hall. Those meetings, no one goes to them. There's maybe 6 people in the room out of the community who are there to speak and listen to what's going on. And it's just sad. And a lot of times, like, I started posting it on my Facebook, and people are like, I didn't even know you could go to those. They have no idea. And it's sad. I reached out to City Hall on Facebook, and I said, if you can post about the e-scooters and when the mayor is having a get together for those, why can you not post about the City Hall meetings and the advisory board meetings? And they said, well, they're always changing, so we can't post about it.
Yeah. And nothing against e-scooters, but
No, not at all.
when you are in the midst of another situation, a police shooting, when you're going through some pretty significant issues in the city, it may not be the best.
No, it was definitely done on purpose. It was a distraction for the community to put their focus on complaining about the scooters, which I'm all for the scooters. I don't care. Ride them. Kids have something to do. Cool. I don't care, just look for traffic,
Yeah.
But yeah, they did that on purpose. It was all of a sudden, boom, they were all over North Street. We don't even have a charging hub. I mean, yeah, I feel like a lot of things with this city are just thrown together without thought of long term. And, like I told the city council, a lot of things are reactive instead of proactive.
Yeah. And I think this is one where at least there is this time around more community pushback. I mean, for lack of a better term. And I think you probably felt a little bit lonely in 2017 and into 2018. I think maybe that there is a better amount of support this time around to have a conversation that will actually lead to some sort of change. And I really hope that that's the case. How are you doing? I mean, it's been some time, the trauma that you faced, and maybe even a little guilt because you made that call. I mean, I can't even imagine what you went through and still probably have to deal with today.
It was definitely rough and a lot of guilt. And I held on to that for a long time. I mean, again, at some point you have to realize that, you're not in control of other people's actions, and you can't control everything. And, but yeah, I did feel that the community didn't care as much when that happened in 2017. A white man with a knife, oh well, and, shot 7 times, which is a lot and not needed. So, I mean, it was disheartening to see that nobody really in the community cared. And then, it was a good feeling, I guess, this time around that the community's coming together finally, but it shouldn't have to take another death, another tragedy, for everybody to pull together, again, reactive instead of proactive. But I mean, I guess the community's aware now and they're not backing down. So we will see what happens. I plan to, after listening to your podcast with Chief Wynn and finding out that our Attorney General was, not petitioned, but she was told about how other states handle lethal cases like this, and they don't look into themselves, investigate themselves. And she was just like, oh, okay. And then didn't go forward with anything. So that bothers me. I definitely plan to follow up with her and find out why. Because I'm sure if it was her family, there would be an outside source looking in. Which, kind of brings me to another topic. I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but they were talking about how they reach out to the family, and the district attorney kind of does their investigation. For us, the police and Chief Wood, none of them ever reached out to myself or Danny's mother. It was DA Capeless at the time. He never called us, nothing, when the case was closed by them. I found out by being tagged in a Facebook post. So, they didn't even have the decency to call us to let us know that this is what was going to happen. I mean, everything after what took place, after that moment that they shot Danny, was just so bizarre. And I know they didn't follow policy. That when I tell people the little details and things, they're like, what? That really happened? And I'm like, yes, And I didn't even know that day that he had died. I was taken into questioning for 2 to 3 hours before they brought me to the hospital. And then they didn't even tell me. They had a doctor tell me after waiting in the emergency room so I went into questioning for about 2 hours. I waited in the emergency room for about a half hour. They finally pulled me in and told me. When I came back out, the 2 detectives who had brought me there left. I had to walk home. So it's just, they didn't let his mother see him afterwards. They said his body was under investigation. It was just, everything afterwards was just so crazy. And I hope they handle things with Miguel and his family differently. I truly do. Because everything afterwards just made it that much worse.
That's tough. That is tough. I had not heard that before.
Yeah.
And I'm very sorry to hear that you had that experience, that, that no matter what the circumstances, I think everyone deserves to have a level of respect and empathy. No matter what you believe about that situation and what actually transpired. When you lose someone, it's devastating.
Right.
So, well, Jacquelyn, I thank you for your time. I think, like I said, and I think you've acknowledged, maybe after this time, there's enough momentum to be able to make some significant change that will lead to better outcomes, in these circumstances. And, we talked about a lot of things with the chief, whether, it's about giving more space or having more time, having different tools, having more crisis professionals who are available, in the department, changing the idea of what response looks like, so that when someone calls seeking help, that you're seeking help, and not
Right.
and not something that's going to turn into a death.
Right.
Which, again, I mean, we can all look at the details, and it can be confusing and it can be fast, because things can happen fast. And there's no question about that, there was stress in that in each situation. But how do you set up a parameter that's going to allow you to have a better outcome?
Right. I mean, it's like Miguel's brother, Corey, said, no one deserves to die because they're having a bad day. So,
Well, Jacquelyn,
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
thank you very much. Here, I'll stop the recording here.